Hello, and welcome back to Measuring Learner Data and Assessment. This is Week 3, Lecture 2, Reliability and Validity. We've discussed at some length the varieties of data, assessment, and mitigating factors surrounding assessment over the last weeks. We now turn to the job of making sure that the assessments we've chosen fulfill the requirements to be termed reliable and/or valid. First, we need to define important terms. Reliability. A common definition states that reliability is the degree to which an assessment tool produces stable and consistent results. This is to say that an assessment should only be considered reliable when, given the same or similar circumstances, the results are similar. Some types of reliability include test-retest reliability, in which the same test is given to the same group of people 2 different times. You can then compare the scores to measure reliability. Parallel forms reliability, in which 2 versions of the same test are given to the same group of individuals. As long as both versions of the test are assessing the same thing, skill, content, knowledge, etc., consistent scores will provide a reasonable level of confidence for reliability. Inter-rater reliability. This attempts to measure the extent that different raters or graders vary in their grading of assessment items. This is specific to assessments that require rating based off of a rubric as opposed to multiple choice or true-false items. I've seen this used in relation to training the raters of essay portions on state exams in English and history. Essay grading can be highly subjective, so inter-rater reliability can definitely be an issue at hand. Internal consistency reliability, in which reliability is measured to find out the extent to which different assessment items that attempt to measure the same content succeed in producing similar results. Next, validity. Reliability, while important and necessary, is not enough. For a test to be reliable, it also needs to be valid. Something can be reliable within and to itself and still not be correct. I can tune my guitar every day to itself, but that doesn't mean that it is tuned to a true E. The guitar's tuning is reliable since it is in tune with itself, but without it being tuned to an outside source that has been proven true, it lacks validity. In terms of assessment, a common definition tells us that validity refers to how well a test measures what it is purported to measure. Types of validity include face validity, the least scientific type of validity, but still important. An assessment has face validity when the stakeholders taking the assessment believe the assessment actually tests what it was intended to test. If they do not feel that the assessment is valid to the skills or content they believed they were being assessed on, the test takers can lose motivation and data will be corrupted. An example of this: if I have been teaching a unit on the political changes that took place in Japan as a result of the Meiji Restoration, and the students come in to an assessment in which they are asked to create a silkscreen painting based on a mid-1800s haiku, they will believe that face validity has been lost. Construct validity. Similar to face validity, this is used to determine whether or not the assessment truly measures what it purports to measure. An example: an elementary math class has been working on addition and subtraction. They've done this mainly through the use of manipulatives and direct instruction. The day of the exam comes and the class performs poorly. The teacher is surprised and asked others in their department to look over the exam. The other teachers see that the questions used in the exam are all lengthy word problems that use vocabulary that is beyond grade level. They explain that the exam, instead of measuring content knowledge, actually began to measure reading comprehension skills, thus losing construct validity. I immediately think of Common Core when discussing this type of validity. With the new push, literacy across the content areas, and college and career readiness, we are seeing an increase in the amount of cross-curricular skills that are being assessed in each content area. Does this decrease construct validity? I would argue that that depends on how the content is being taught. If the skills being assessed are being taught and utilized during instruction, then the assessment should be aligned and remain valid. Criterion-related validity. This is testing how well does a newly created assessment predict performance on a previously created assessment. For example, New York State teachers using Regents question databases to create their unit and/or midterm exams. The hope is that the scores students attain on these measures will compare favorably with the state assessment at the end of the school year. Formative validity. This is utilizing assessment data to reflect improvement needs for the program or curriculum as a whole. For example, Global History in New York is a 2-year course. An assessment can be given at the beginning of 10th grade to every student on the content learned in 9th grade. This data can be shared with 9th grade teachers to show areas in need of remediation. And last, sampling validity. This tries to make sure that the assessment covers the broad range of content present in any given area of study. Since one assessment can't cover every topic, items must be sampled from each area. For example, summative assessments that cover cumulative topics need to have good sampling validity. Many test-building databases have this function built in. How can we be sure that our assessments are reliable and valid? Over time and multiple uses, we will begin to be able to determine the reliability and validity of the assessments we create ourselves. Feel free to use some of the tests for reliability and validity we went over here in your own practice. Alternately, we don't have that much control over the reliability and validity of assessments created by people or entities outside of ourselves. We're basically left to trust that what we are told, or left to assume, about these assessments, that they are both reliable and valid. So what are our responsibilities here? First, we must be responsible proctors. If we are expected to proctor an assessment that has been determined to be reliable and valid, it is our duty to adhere to the protocols and expectations that keep that assessment standardized. Without strict adherence to these rules and procedures, we run the risk of injuring the reliability and validity of the measure. We also have a responsibility to be active scholars of the measures we are asked to use. If you notice that the validity of an assessment seems to be in question, raise the issue. Assessments provide us with the data we need to do our jobs effectively. If they are not valid and reliable, then the data is corrupted and our entire practice is thrown off. Assessment can provide a wide variety of data, but that data needs to be protected. This can be done by attempting to ensure the reliability and validity of the assessments being utilized.